I find that the exchange of knowledge and discussion, the exchange of information is what I enjoy the most. That's why I'm a teacher. That's why I left law enforcement. I left law enforcement 10 years ago. This is my 10th year this fall as a trainer. It's my 8th year paying bills as a trainer. But 10 years since this is what I wanted to do. This is what I decided to spend my life doing. So if you'll indulge me, let's do some of that. Let's talk about something that you're curious about. I don't care if it's gear related, if it's tactics related, if it's technique related, whatever it is. Sir.
I'd like to talk about some of the guys who just got in there in Florida to carry weapons. One of them is a carrier who's practicing having that item concealed on them. How do you do that during the time? In New Jersey, they can't.
Good question. So the question is, for those of you in the back who couldn't hear it, I'm going to get a concealed carry permit. I'm going to use it when I go to Florida with my family. I'm going to use it when I'm in Ohio, whatever it is. In all those blue states on the map, I can carry. But I can't practice. And I like that there's a part of that question that the essence of it is that you're not going to be comfortable if you can't do it for some length of time, right? I'm not just talking about comfort like the real, like regular old physical comfort. Like, can I comfortably carry this gun the way I dress as I move around for 6 hours when I'm walking around in Florida, when I'm walking around in Ohio? That's a legitimate question. That's a New Jersey question. Like that's a great question, because if I were standing in Texas and there were a room full of people, they wouldn't ask that question, because they can carry the gun around. So, never had to think about it before, really. We always recommend that people do carry consistently, right? However you're going to carry your gun consistently, carry it the same way as often as you can, the same type of gun. Consistency is a huge contributor to efficiency, and efficiency is key to developing skills you're going to be able to use in that 3 to 5 second fight. So, with something like this, you're not violating any laws that I'm aware of. You're wrong. There we go. Now, obviously, you can't take this to school property, probably. You couldn't say this to school with your kids, that kind of thing. It's not that hand yet. It's still trying to have a little, tendency to annoy some people. But this, what's the essence of concealed carry? Concealed, something's going to know you that. So if you get your belly band, and this is actually how I carry, probably for the last couple of years anyway. This is primarily how I carry and what I carry. A small revolver in this type of holster, which is worn around the waist. So the gun actually sits basically right there, and it's contained inside of that leather pouch. Could you guess that? This? Yes, sure. So wearing a gun like this does take some getting used to, especially after years and years and years and years of carrying it here or here. Then carrying it here is a little different. And I get used to it, got used to it through doing it. You can't. Really good question, New Jersey. But this you can do. And you can get a replica gun that is exactly like the gun that you're going to take with you to those other states where you can carry. Blue gun, red gun, wooden gun, carbon out of soap, whatever it is. But you want it to be a one-to-one replica. Again, consistency. Get the model of gun that you carry. Obviously, you're going to have the holster, which means it's going to fit in that holster, and wear it. And get used to it. I don't know what the downside would be. The downside, I don't see a downside to that. Wear it. Wear it to work, wear it to the mall, wear it around, wear it in the car, wear it around the house. Get used to it, because that's maybe the only option you've got. Now, training to present the gun, this gets tricky now. Because of consistency, I'm not a big fan of dry fire practice. I think dry fire can really break down good defensive skills, because so much of defensive shooting isn't the shooting part. The shooting's pretty easy with defensive shooting, honestly. Shooting with defensive shooting is inside the length of your room. When the guy takes the door in, you're in the corner, he comes in, whatever the length of your bedroom is. The length around your car. The length from that first corner to your front entryway, where you're standing at that corner when the person kicks the door in, because your family's in the rooms behind you. We can pretty well predict the types of situations you could be in. So dry fire is really, really good. Actually pulling the trigger on an empty gun is really, really good for developing target shooting skills, extreme precision capability. We don't need extreme precision capability nearly as much as you need something like recoil management when it comes to firing a multiple round string of fire into someone just until they stop at relatively close ranges as quickly as you can. Well, obviously you can't get recoil management from dry fire. You got to be careful. So now, when you've got your replica and you're going to practice your presentation, practicing the presentation, I just got startled by somebody, I'm going to reach down, I'm going to clear my shirt, I'm going to pull the gun up, and I'm going to stop my presentation training right here at what we call the high compressed ready position. Because if I do this, I may be doing this well, or maybe I'm not doing this well. I don't know. Because there's not any accountability out there. There's not a bullet hole in paper. There's not even, with this device, there's not even like a laser dot that shows up on a target, right? It's not an aerosol pellet coming out. I have no idea if I did that well, right? I can make that look really super fast and awesome, except right here is not where I want the gun. It might have looked like something you might have seen somewhere, but the gun is now pointed out of my chest. So I might do 50,000 reps of that with my plastic gun, and then actually need a gun to defend myself and be in Ohio or Florida or Texas or wherever it is that I'm actually carrying, and do that and not hit my target because I got really good at the wrong thing. So be careful about your presentation practice with your practice gun and your banana in your pocket or whatever you're doing. Go to the ready position, because the ready position is part of your training and your presentation. Anyway, we say that we go through the ready position to get to our shooting position. So come up to the ready position, you've got your practice, you're good to go, and then you can actually practice your extension from the ready, and hopefully you can find a ready and practice your presentation from the holster through extension to the shot when you actually have to do your live fire training. Because that's part two of that question, right? Is where can I find a range that I can do realistic defensive training on? And that's hard. That's very hard. Good question. Next question.
We had a discussion actually shaping on a time of like more, but as you go on the discussion of anti-repetitive gun games such as I.C.E. was PSA and steel get you killed in an defensive situation.
All right, really good question. Value of competition to defensive training, and in fact, is there a negative to the habits formed in competition when it comes to your defensive training? Really, really tricky. The easy answer is, if you're going to spend money and time shooting, and your primary interest in firearms is defense, not competition, you should do realistic practice and do defensive training practice. That's the easy answer. Is shooting an ID game actually going to get you killed? No, probably not. Have people picked up horrible habits in the context of defense from competition shooting and then had that bite them in the ass during a defensive incident? Yes. There's a police officer down south who drew a gun, double tap, came back in, and realized that guy wasn't impressed by his double tap. The guy was like an IDPA hero, regional champion, whatever, in the law enforcement division. Where did that habit of double tapping come from? Could it have come from IDPA? Maybe. Did it come from some 1983 training VHS tape that he was working off of? Maybe. I don't know. But I know that a game that tells you every target takes 2 shots, and you should shoot 2 shots into everything around you, every bad guy target around you, because you've got a stage briefing and you knew where they all were, is not developing the things in shooting techniques, tactics, and concepts that I teach. And I don't think anybody really teaches those as defensive shooting concepts. So the danger isn't in participating in the game, which can be fun and can be a great excuse to go to shoot and a great way to meet other members of your shooting society society, right? A great reason to get out when you can't do active type training on the range when you're in a stall that's, 2 feet wide and you're not allowed to use a holster, and you're not allowed to do any of that at your regular shooting range. This gives you an opportunity to go out and do something a little more dynamic. So, especially here, especially in the area where you can't just go out in the backyard and shoot up against the hill, and you might need to go to an IDPA match or an IPSC match or something like that in order to do some dynamic shooting, I would say that it's not horrible. But I think a lot of it has to do with your approach, your mental approach to it. If you're going there to win, if you want to get a good score at the IDPA match, don't come into the forum and tell me that you're going to the IDPA match as you are training. That's your gun play. That's cool. Fun with guns is cool. That's been a lifetime doing it. Guns are fun, and competition is fun, and awesome, cool. Go have a good time, try to get a good score. But don't tell me it's your training, because it's not. If you're compromising your technique, if you're compromising your tactics, if you're compromising your gear selection, your holster, the way you dress, if you're getting a stage briefing, if you're doing any of that, it's not counter ambush training. It's not defensive training. Some parts of it might count as practice, but not all of it, not most of the problem. So I think it's all on how to approach it. And I think you have to have integrity and be honest with yourself about what you're doing. If you're out there to get a good score, cool, it's a game. If you're out there just because it's the only way you can get to actually pull the gun from the holster and shoot, awesome. And you know what? They're not going to, they shouldn't kick you out of the competition for shooting 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 shots into those targets. They're only going to count for 2, but I don't care. I'm not going to always shoot 2 shots every time I pull a gun out to practice my defense and shooting. So if you're really practicing defensive shooting, load that target up every once in a while. Don't worry about how much time it's taking you to lean out around a corner, because you can step out as long as you shoot them in the right order. They're going to check the box and say you used cover well enough. Maybe every once in a while you want to take 30 seconds on that stage to really think about what it would be like to go around a corner and worry about getting your elbow shot. Worry about getting your leg shot if you stepped out. So there are certainly ways you can use those environments to your advantage. Some clubs have changed their rules. Like, for example, I teach lateral movement. Lateral movement on presentation is moving offline from the line of attack. Some clubs that have been influenced by our training model or other training models that are similar have put boxes on the ground that don't reflect where the shooter must stand to shoot. They reflect where the shooter must not be to shoot. And they start them in the box. When the buzzer goes off, they must get out of the box as they're presented. Right? And that would be radical for some clubs. Some clubs would say, oh my God, people are going to shoot themselves in the foot, fall down, and it's going to be horrible. And other clubs say, hey, if you aren't doing that kind of stuff, if you aren't training to that level, cool, come to a class. We'll help you get there. We'll help you practice that technique. You can learn to present while you're moving, and start practicing to get offline when people are shooting bullets at you instead of just worrying about the fast time score. So there are definitely ways to approach competition responsibly as a primarily defensive shooter. Go.
When you conceal carry extra ammo with you, I mean,
you talk about in this situation?
Yeah, in this situation. You consider that enough?
I consider it better than nothing, right? So the question is, do I carry extra ammo when I carry a J-frame, when I carry a revolver? Carrying any firearm is a compromise, right? And there's always going to be compromises involved. Size of the gun, capacity of the gun, the caliber, the concealability, the way you dress, where you live, what state you live in, how many rounds you have in the gun because of magazine capacity restriction. It's always going to be a compromise, right? If we knew something bad was going to happen, we just wouldn't go there, right? If we could choose anything, we'd choose, a platoon of Marines that surround us all the time. So any gun that we carry is going to be a compromise. This is a huge compromise, but it's incredibly convenient. It's incredibly reliable. And I've done a lot of training with it, a lot of practice with it. I also think that when you look at typical threat situations, and this was actually a question that came up at dinner tonight, was can I cite some examples where people have used high-capacity magazines to defend themselves, right? So we can get a list of these situations